Hello everyone, welcome back to another Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial. Guys, in this one, I'm going to show you how to apply a blur transition inside Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. Now, you will know if you've been looking around or you're a video editor that there isn't a video transition. If you go to Effects, there isn't a blur transition by default. So that's why I'm going to show you a little workaround. So if you go to Effects, for example, I'm in the Effects workspace, and I'm in the Effects panel over here. If you do not see the Effects panel, just go to Window, make sure there is a check mark beside Effects. So you'll go down to Video Transitions, and you're going to notice here that when you go through all of the transitions, that there are no blurs in here, which is strange because it's a pretty commonly used transition effect, but it's not there. So I'm going to show you how to do it the other way. The first step is you want to now go to your project panel, which for me is down here, and you want to go to New Item. Now, there is a chance that if this project panel is collapsed or it's really small, that you might not see it. So you may have to drag and pull this out. You need to see this basic piece of paper with the folded bottom left corner. New Item is the first step. The next step is we're actually going to create an adjustment layer. Left click on that, and you're going to see adjustment layer width and height. They are by default set to the size of your original footage or your sequence. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and left click on it. Now for me, my adjustment layer defaults to 1 second. The high probability that your default adjustment layer is 5 seconds. Doesn't matter. Just drag and drop the adjustment layer out onto your panel, just like this, onto V2. And now, I'm going to zoom in a bit, depending on how long you want your transition to be, you can just go ahead and extend the size. So right now, this is exactly 1 second long. For this tutorial, I'm going to make it 2 seconds long. So I'm just going to go ahead, and you'll see how it says 121, 123, 124, 2. So we're obviously at 25 frames per second. This is now a 2-second adjustment layer, which is what we're going to use as our transition. So now I'm going to left click on the adjustment layer, and I am going to put it on top. Now right now you'll see that it's not in between. So I want it to be 50% on one side and 50% on the other. So I'm just going to eyeball that. Let's see here. That is at 1301, 1124. So maybe I have to go 1 to the right. Okay, so I just want to make this pretty close. All right, how far are we? Come on, Curtis, let's go. I just wanted to be as close as possible to 50-50. So it's a little bit off. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust it a little left. There we go. So we got it on half on the left, half on the right. Perfect. Now, the next step is you want to go back up into your effects. Probably want to pull it down a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and select not video transitions, but video effects. And in particular, we're going to go to blur and sharpen. And for this tutorial, we're going to use a Gaussian blur. Of course, you can use any of the other blurs or any of these other effects for that matter. But again, Gaussian blur for this one. Now, we're going to drag and drop the Gaussian blur effect onto the adjustment layer, just like that. So you'll see when I drag and drop it on the left side here, Gaussian blur is now applied to adjustment layer. You'll notice that I dropped it on the adjustment layer and not the original footage. We're also working, I guess you could say, non-destructively. So again, Gaussian blur has been applied, and it defaults at a blurriness of 0, which is fine. So there is no effect applied. Now what I want to do is I want it to start it off with no blur, work up to being blurry in the middle, and then slowly fade out to blur. So it's going to start with no blur and end with no blur and get increasingly blurry in the middle of the transition. So I have moved the playhead back to the start of the adjustment layer, and the blurriness is set to 0. I am now going to critically hit this stopwatch, which is the toggle animation stopwatch, and when I do that, it is going to apply a keyframe. I am going to left click on the triangle, and now I'm going to start at 0, like I said, and then let's say, let's go after 5 frames, let's say. Now I want it to be blurry. I want it to ramp up to, say, 50. That's pretty blurry. That looks like 12 beers worth of blur, don't you think, guys? 10 beers? I don't know. I don't have a good blur anymore. So at 1207, so after 5 frames, it ramped up to 50 blur, and it's going to continue being blurry across the transition until we get to about, let's say, 5 frames away from the end. That looks about 5 frames. Let's just go with that. Again, I'm not trying to be scientific here. I'm just showing you the technique. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit the Add Remove Keyframe button here. Left-click it, and it's going to apply another keyframe. This is critically important so that now it stays blurry. It goes no blur, blur, all the way across, and now it's going to fade out. Now I'm going to move it to the end, to here, and then I'm going to drag it back down to 0. Well, no, that's not Command Z. Hang on, I messed up. Go back 1, and I'm going to drag this down to, well, let's go to 1. Let's see what we got here. Did I do this right? Blurry, not blurry. Okay, yeah, I went really quickly, but then you'll see here as it gets out, it fades out and becomes less blurry quickly. So what we're doing here is we've basically gone ahead and created a mode in, blur out. That is how you use a adjustment layer and video effect to create transitions that are different than Adobe Premiere Pro's default video transitions. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I got a lot more stuff coming up. Stay tuned.